Hello everyone! Today for our Trails to Tasting video we are going to be making absolutely delicious, nice, warm cup of tea, but we'll be spicing it up and making a hot toddy out of these amazing pine needles. Let's figure out how to identify the eastern white pine as compared to some other local conifers that you may have, such as spruce, hemlock, or even other types of pine like loblolly if you're farther south than I am, or mugos that may be more decorative that you can see around. Let's start with identifying the needles. You can see here there are these long, bright green needles, and these are the foliage of the tree here. They don't have your standard leaves like a deciduous tree would. They have needles instead. And you're going to see that these needles are kind of in little itty bitty bundles. These bundles are called fascicles, and all pines, here we can see those bundles really well, all pines have these fascicles. And we can identify the species of pine based on how long the bundles are and the number of needles in each fascicle. So if we find a bundle here of fascicles and we can count how many needles are in there, there are, get out of there, you're not part of that fascicle. There are 5 in the eastern white pine. 5 needles per fascicle. Keep in mind though, as you are counting, that despite being called an evergreen, they do lose their needles. As you can see down here on the ground, shedding needles is not a sign of disease or sickness necessarily in evergreens. It's kind of like our skin cells. As our skin, you know, we don't lose our skin all at once. We shed skin cells slowly over time and then they get replaced. It's the same with pines. Slowly over time, every so often, you may see that they start to yellow, and here we go, we can see one of the brown needles that just falls off on its own, not a problem, leaving most of the tree happy and healthy with quality needles left. Other than counting the number of needles per fascicle, we can also look at how long the needles are. For example, eastern white pine have needles that are about 3 to 5 inches in length, where loblolly pines will be very, very different in the fact that their needles will be huge. It'll be like 6 to 10 inches in length, so really long. And then you have your baby little mugo pine, which has very stiff fascicles, and they're like that big, itty bitty. We can also identify the eastern white pine by its bark. You can see here that pine bark is rather scaly, and it looks like there's these little segments that have just been kind of stuck on here. And overall, they may have a grayish color, or depending on the light, or if there's any bits that are flaking off, you may see a reddish color underneath. You may also notice these splotches of white, especially in areas where there have been wounds. Pines are known for their sap, and here we can see, you may see a bit of glossy liquid coming out right there, and that is their sap. That sap is prolific throughout the pine tree and flows very quickly. So in areas where you see those sticky white bits like that, that's the sap. You may also notice these like rows of dots in the bark. These were produced by a bird called a sapsucker. And here we have birds called the yellow-belly sapsucker. And they will drill in, very shallow, drill into the bark, usually in this like long line here. You can see it's a row. And they will drill in and make it shallow enough that the sap will start to flow, but it doesn't necessarily harm the tree. You're not going deep into the epidermis. And they'll lick that up nice and yummy. I've now got my fully harvested jar of needles here. So now when we go back to make our pine needle hot toddy, or if you just want to make a nice cup of tea, these are the needles that we are going to chop up finely. So you want to do that when you are ready to make the cocktail. Now that we have all of our ingredients, like my assistant will point, the pine, we can get started on making our hot toddies. So I've got water boiling already, but keep in mind that with your pine, as you chop it up really finely, it's going to secrete those oils, and if you boil it, that's going to degrade those oils. So you're going to boil your water and then you're going to let it cool just a little bit. But we have our pine, and I have made cute little tea bags that are reusable and eco-friendly, and you can find out more about how to do that in some of my other videos that you can see at the end here. But I have my finely chopped pine needles, I have cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice as well. You can substitute allspice for cloves if you need. So we pop that in our warm beverage glass, wrap it around. That way when you pour the hot water in, it doesn't pull your tea bag and your little paper inside. And you are going to then add a spoonful of sugar. Make it brown sugar. Brown sugar can help bring the flavor of whiskey or bourbon out very nicely. So we've got our spoon of sugar. Pop that in. And then add 1.5 ounces of your whiskey or bourbon. And then stir it a little bit so that the sugar can dissolve in the alcohol. And already the liquid is going to be pulling those oils of your pine needles out. So it's already steeping. Once the tea water boils, then we can let it cool for just a moment and then fill that up. Once your tea has finished boiled and then cooled off just a little bit, you can fill your cup. This you're just going to top off. There we go. If you want, you can add a lemon wedge as a garnish, but I'm going to leave mine as is. Then you just wait for it all to steep. All right, I have let my tea steep. My cute little tea bag here. Now, let's see what it tastes like. Lots of the bourbon, but it's warm and it's cozy, and honestly it tastes a little bit like the smell of the pine, but only this much, but that's okay. Definitely good for Christmas. I might have to add the lemon next time, the lemon wedge, but we always learn something new. Did you enjoy making your cozy warm beverage? Because it's getting to be the time of year when warm drinks are the best types of drinks. You can subscribe to the Art of Ecology's YouTube channel and learn more about wild edibles and foraging, or you can support me on www.theartofecology.com to learn more on my blog about goodness like this and how to take advantage of the winter landscape this upcoming season.